But yes, this is Believing Buckeyes. I'm Brian Browning with All-American quarterback Chindy Chekwa. Hey man, it's like officially summer, man. It's June. It's
Yeah.
like it's June, man.
Yeah.
How you feeling? I mean, I know you're a down south guy. In Ohio, summers are a tad bit different. But how you feeling, man? Is it too cold? I mean, it was like 60 the other day.
Yeah,
Like,
Ohio doesn't know what it wants to be. Summers, winters have. I'm gonna say this: winters have been relatively mild last couple of years.
Yeah.
But springs and summers, you get a couple hot days, a couple medium days. But overall, I'm not gonna complain. I think the weather has been pretty fair, and I actually like it to be a little bit mild. I don't like it to be too hot. So I think the weather's been good. Yeah, and I mean summer's here, which means we're getting closer and closer to football season. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, so I mean, 11 Warriors dropped the depth chart. Obviously, now that spring obviously been done for a few months now, but now the transfer window has closed, and so it looks like your roster is pretty much set going into fall. And 11 Warriors went ahead and dropped the depth chart here, and it went about 3 deep. And sometimes with you going 3 deep in every position, you're gonna start adding some guys that might not necessarily really be in the mix. But looking at that depth chart, Shum, is it anywhere that you think? Well, I know a couple spots we know some competition, but what are your thoughts about the depth chart and how they have guys kind of lined up going into the summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should add that it's kind of their projected depth chart. I think one of the interesting things, and I think James Laurinaitis, I saw something came out recently of somebody asking him about some of the young linebackers. I think that linebacker position is an interesting one because it's one where there's a lot of depth in terms of talent, a lot of talent depth, but also a lot of youth. Like Sonny Styles, this would be his first year playing linebacker. CJ Hicks, this would be his first year potentially getting any significant time at the position. You got another guy, Gabe Powers, who hasn't played a ton hasn't played a ton in real games. Cody Simon is the one kind of veteran there. And Arvo Reese, who every time I mention him, man, I still see this huge player in the middle of the field, man. He's a big dude.
Tall blooded, yeah. Right.
Glenville guy, a guy who has a lot of talent. So that position is one to watch. I think they got a great coach in his first year as an official coach, and James Laurinaitis. They asked him some questions about some of the young linebackers. He mentioned C.J. Hicks is at a place now, and without quoting him directly, he pretty much seemed like he was saying he understands the game, he understands the position, he has a good feel for the position now, and he's going to be able to help the team. He also mentioned Sonny Styles and his ability to transition from safety to linebacker. So I'm interested in how they use those guys because you got a lot of guys who could play, but you really only have two positions that Mike and that Will linebacker, because a lot of the time it's going to be in a nickel package. You're going to have a guy like Jordan Hancock on the field. So I'm interested in do they go with three linebackers at times and put Sonny Styles kind of at that Sam where he can drop in coverage, or do they really just go with two linebackers? And if they do, or do they rotate these guys, or is it going to be the typical Jim knows two linebackers play every game, all game? Some of those other guys who are young, talented players, but even if you're young and you're talented, you need to get out there and continue to gain experience to continue to grow your game. So that's one of those positions that I watch closely. If it's me, I'm saying I think C.J. Hicks gets the nod. I think Cody Simon gets the nod, and I think Sonny Styles is used a lot in terms of his position flexibility. But it's like, man, a guy like Arthur Reese out there, man, I feel like you got to use these guys in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just really the problem, the issue, like when you come to a big school like Ohio State, right? I mean, sometimes you just get in these situations where it's just so much talent at the same position. It's kind of just like, who knows, right? Because obviously it all has to play out. But essentially, it's linebackers and defense. Usually that starter, whoever gets that start, is going to get the vast majority of the snaps. And that's really just how it goes. Barring injury, obviously, and no one could predict it. No one, could say when it happens. barring injury, that's what you expect to see. Now, we've seen Cody Simon over the years kind of playing a little bit more and more for Chambers and rotating in there for Eichenberg once he kind of started having injuries.
Yeah.
But you imagine, even in spring practice, he was the one practicing with the radio in his helmet, right? So it's like, he almost can't leave the field when you kind of start looking at it in that matter. And so, it'd be interesting. I mean, I know James Laurinaitis kind of spoke highly about Sonny Styles, but when it really comes down to it, he only been playing linebacker for literally 15 practices, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like he's a linebacker from the high school level. No, he's a safety who's kind of now starting to creep a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So can he make that judgment that fast? We will see. Obviously, Sonny Styles, him being a contributor to this defense as he was last year, you imagine you have to find a spot for him, right? It just wouldn't. It might cause maybe even friction in the locker room to see a guy like that not playing. So you imagine they have to kind of work in and figure it out. With a guy like C.J. Hicks, right? I mean, I believe he's going into his third season at Ohio State, and now he's starting to kind of get the grasp and understand things, and I want to say more or less mature into that position. And that's good to see. I mean, that's what coaching is about, right? I mean, I know he's a very highly a really rated high guy coming out of high school, and that's fine. But a lot of times those guys get a lot of added pressure due to what was going on in high school. It's really due to their measurables and what type of athlete they are. But sometimes it takes a little time to actually understand what is needed to kind of perform at the higher level. So I'm glad that CJ didn't really, I guess, fall into the hype and kind of start to feel too big for himself and do something like jump in the portal and lead the program. Stuck with it, kept learning, kept developing, and now it looks like this season we'll actually get to see him out there performing on Saturday. So
one thing I hate though, like something that I hate is wasted talent. You know what I'm saying? And when I say wasted talent, I mean a guy who's ready to go, who could play, and just can't get on the field. Like that's just me personally. Like obviously I want Ohio State to win game. That's a priority.
yeah.
But man, when you have I think back to Baron Brown.
Yeah.
Baron Brownie played the linebacker position. He wasn't a starter necessarily. He played in spots. And every time he stepped on the field, man, he just flashed across the screen. And I mean, I don't know what the word was out on him. I don't know if it was that he couldn't grasp the position as well as some of the other guys. Who knows? But what I do know is when he stepped foot on the football field and the ball was moving, he was going to get that ball. So if you have that level of talent, some of these guys it's gonna shake out. Some guys will play, some guys may play next year or more, et cetera, whatever. But to be able to maximize the talent on the roster at these different positions. And the thing about defense, man, there's flexibility on defense where you don't have to pigeonhole a guy to a specific position. You see what Baron Brownie has been able to do in the NFL, playing the defensive end, being more of a speed type rusher. I feel like, you have some of those body types, some of those explosive type players on the roster at linebacker here at Ohio State. So my hope is that they make the most of those guys who are out there. Because the other thing about wasted talent is some of these guys, when you just don't see the field, you just don't continue to progress at the same rate as others. And you don't continue to develop as you should.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that these guys play. I know fans have been asking for C.J. Hicks for many years. This is his time. But there's some other guys on their roster, man, that just have the talent. To me, Sonny Styles, even at a safety position last year, he looked like a linebacker to me. So I don't think the transition should be that difficult. But yeah, just a wealth of talent, and I'm hoping to see it play out, especially with an expanded season, potentially with the new playoff.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest thing I guess regarding this depth chart, obviously, it's a lot of competition on here, right? I mean, you got quarterback competition. I mean, they kind of, start putting out wide receivers in spots. Obviously, there's competition there, competition at the tight end position. But I guess one that just kind of stood out to me is at the right guard position where we have competition. Essentially, I mean, from Ohio State, it's like, oh, it could be many of people at the right guard position. It could be Tegra. It could be our starting center from last year, Carson Hinsman. It could be our starting right tackle from last year, Josh Fryer. It could be Luke Montgomery, who was a talented freshman who performed really well for us. So right now, I mean, like I say, this is just a predicted depth chart. I think I said it after watching the the spring practice game. It should be Carson Hinsman. I'm like, that's the one role we said we was going to start the competition. Now I say you plug Carson there. He has the experience of playing. Obviously, we have a center move come in from the transfer portal, so we let Seth play the center, pick Carson at guard. We start the competition. We roll with that 5 and go from there, man. So
Yeah,
that's
you have guys like Tegra who started at right tackle, moved in the so those guys could be the kind of the backup. So if a guy gets hurt, he could play multiple positions. So I mean, I agree. I think that's it. Set the offensive line.
Set it.
Let them continue to grow and mesh and be that foundation that we need going through the season.
Yeah, that's for sure.